We stepped outside slowly. No rushing, no shouting. Oreo walked ahead first, stopping every few steps like he was mapping the ground. Chocolate stayed close to my legs. Vanilla and Waffle moved together, brave but careful. Ma paused near the edge of the yard. Jojo pressed against my ankle. Not scared, just checking. Pultu led the way. That's when we heard it. Not loud, not clear. A sound that almost disappeared between the wind and the leaves. A cry. Small, broken. The kind of sound you don't hear with your ears first. You feel it. Everyone froze. Even Pultu. The cry came again. Jojo's ears turned forward. Chocolate sat down suddenly, like she understood the weight of it. Vanilla and Waffle pressed closer together. Ma didn't move at all. That's when I knew something important. No one here was curious anymore. They were concerned. Pultu took one careful step forward. Then another. The cry came again, weaker this time. We followed. Not because we were brave, but because turning back wasn't an option. Under a pile of wet leaves near the fence, something moved. Just barely. I knelt down slowly. No sudden movements. No grabbing. Jojo sat right beside me. Pultu stood between us and the dark. Inside the leaves was a tiny body. Cold, shaking, alive. The cry stopped. Not because it was gone, but because it knew it had been heard. I looked around at my family. No panic, no chaos, only one shared truth. Whatever happens next, we're already in this together. The cry didn't stop because it was saved. It stopped because it was heard. I moved the leaves slowly, not to see better, but to make sure I didn't scare whoever was underneath. Pultu stood firm at my side, body still, eyes watching the dark. Jojo sat so close I could feel his warmth against my leg. Oreo leaned forward, nose low. Chocolate didn't move at all, like she understood that stillness mattered. Vanilla and Waffle stayed pressed together, wide-eyed but brave. Ma watched from behind, steady and quiet. Under the leaves, there wasn't just one. There were more. Tiny bodies curled into each other, barely moving. Their fur was damp, their breathing shallow. They didn't cry now. They were too tired. I froze for a moment. Not because I was afraid, but because I knew this part mattered. I spoke softly. Not words, just sound. Jojo answered with a low, gentle chirp. Pultu lowered his head, blocking the wind without being asked. One of the tiny bodies twitched. A paw moved. Alive. I covered them again for warmth, leaving space for air. I didn't touch yet. Rescue isn't grabbing. It's listening first. The others stayed exactly where they were. No crowding, no panic. They trusted the moment. I looked at my family, every one of them, and I knew. Whatever came next, feeding, warming, staying up all night, no one here was leaving. Because when you find them like this, cold and hidden and still breathing, you don't walk away. You stay. When we found them, we didn't rush. We stayed. I sat back on my heels for a moment. The leaves were still damp in my hands. The air felt colder now that I knew how small they were. No one moved. Pultu stayed planted in front of us, body angled just enough to block the wind. Jojo leaned against my leg, steady and warm. Oreo watched the ground like he was guarding a line only he could see. Chocolate didn't blink. Vanilla and Waffle stayed shoulder to shoulder. Ma stood behind us, quiet, solid, already committed. I hadn't said a word, but somehow, everyone already knew what this moment was. I looked at the tiny bodies again, so still, so fragile. And then I felt it. Not fear, not panic. Responsibility. Rescue doesn't always announce itself with urgency. Sometimes it arrives quietly and waits to see who will stay. I reached out slowly. Not to lift. Not to move. Just to promise. I'm here. Pultu lowered his head almost like he understood. Jojo answered with a soft sound. Not loud, just present. That's when the smallest one shifted. A breath, a twitch. Enough. I didn't ask myself if we could do this. I asked how. How to keep them warm. How to keep them safe. How to do this without rushing, without hurting, without fear. And before I could say anything out loud, we were already doing it. Pultu stayed guarding. Jojo stayed close. The others stayed exactly where they were. No debate. No hesitation. That was the decision. Not spoken, not dramatic, but final. Whatever came next. Long nights, quiet feeding, waiting and worrying. We weren't walking away. Because rescue isn't a single act. It's the moment you decide someone else's life matters enough to change yours. That's when we decided we weren't leaving.